All right, cool. Thank y'all for being here. Like I said, we are taking a look at chapter builder and how our chapter can use it to help us grow. So general basic information, just in case you didn't know, ChapterBuilder is a CRM tool, a client relationship management tool. Many different organizations, industries, things like that have a CRM to track the relationships that they have with their clients. What are you buying? When are you contacting support? All that good stuff. The reason why they do that is so that way they know where their relationship is at with you and we know where to go in the future. Okay. So what chapter builder is it's that version, but for fraternities and sororities to grow. So instead of tracking the relationships that you're building with your clients, you're tracking the relationships that you're building with your potential new members, with those guys on campus who you're recruiting, going through rush, whatever you call it. That's who you can track here in chapter builder. Now, those potential new members who are in here, they have their own profile, things like that. We call them leads in Chapter Builder. So whenever you hear the word lead, just know that that's like your potential member. The core of Chapter Builder is right here in the lead list. So what the lead list does is it takes all of those guys, all that contact information, their names, their phone numbers, their emails, all that good stuff, and it puts it all in one place, essentially creating a potential new member profile for each potential new member on our list. Now, if you are a like spreadsheet person or you like looking at columns, we have two different ways that you can view this potential new member list, this lead list. You can either view it here in the card view. This will give you a brief snapshot of their contact information, or you can switch it over to the list view. So this is one of my tricks that I like to make sure to mention because I know sometimes, we love our spreadsheets. Sometimes it's a little hard to move away from those, but I just want you to know that we do have that sort of column view that you might be really familiar and comfortable with. Now, the way that our leads list is organized is based on their status, and their status tells us where they are in the recruiting process. So, potential new members come into our lead list as our default D status, meaning that they need to be contacted. It's our goal to start building a relationship with this guy, to start getting to know him, having him hang out around the chapter, see how he vibes, all that good stuff. Once they have expressed some sort of interest of some sort, maybe they've come to an event, maybe they've been texting you back or DMing you back or whatever that might be, that's when we move their status from a D to a C, expressed interest. Once they've expressed some sort of interest, we know the difference between that type of lead relationship that we have and the D needs to be contacted. There's a difference there. Once that this guy starts hanging around the chapter, we like him, he likes us, all that good stuff, we're going to move him to the B status, which is a mutual interest. Um, again, we're taking that relationship up a level. They're even closer to becoming a new member by increasing their status from that D to C to B. Then once we decide, yes, we like this guy, let's get him a bid. Let's talk about what membership actually looks like. Let's do a pre-close with him, sort of addressing any of his concerns that he might have in joining the fraternity. Once they're at that point, you would move them to that A status, which is holding a bid or that they need a bid. And then once they sign that bid, accept it, you're going to move them to an A plus, indicating that they're brand new members. Okay. So that is how our list is organized. We are categorizing potential new members based on where they are in the recruiting process. So we know that how we approach our Ds need to be contacted is going to be really different than how we approach our Bs of that mutual interest, right? Because they're mutual interests, they're going to know more people in the chapter. Again, the way that we address them, the way that we invite them to events, things like that is going to be different than our Ds. So this is one way that you get to segment this list to categorize leads based on where they are in the recruiting process. Now, my favorite trick for using Chapter Builder, one of the biggest things for getting your chapter to really embrace Chapter Builder to track your recruitment efforts is to visit Chapter Builder regularly. Okay, it's going to be a best practice to log into Chapter Builder at least once a week, and I'm going to give you my recipe for what it looks like when we log into Chapter Builder every week. So if you're doing this with like a small committee, a rush committee, or whoever that might be, if you are Maybe you're a smaller chapter, and so everyone in the chapter really has to help out with recruitment. We could add all of our members in here. But what I like to do with those people who are helping your recruitment efforts, whether that's a committee, whether that's the whole chapter, I like to start off by filtering our lead list and taking a look just at, and I start with our easy ones. I start with our A's. So we have these other statuses. Some of these are like hold statuses, like a wait list, or they're not compatible when we decide, nope, we're not pursuing them for membership anymore. But really, when it comes to actively recruiting leads, we're going to be focusing on the D, C, B, and A statuses. So I like to start off easy with our A statuses and apply those filters. This is going to give me now all of our leads with that A status. So this tells us that they're at the point where they're either holding a bid or they need a bid. Now that I have, oops, sorry about that. I just changed that status. Sorry about that. But now that we have this list, what we can do is say, okay, Theo needs some sort of conversation about what it's like to be a member, see if he has any concerns in joining or if he would say yes. Who is going to be responsible for that task? That's the question that you should be asking when you're meeting regularly. Now, with an A status potential new member, this is someone who already knows people in the chapter. He already has people that he's probably texting or hanging out with and things like that. That's where I like to use this feature of the main contact. Main contact will tell you who is responsible for that lead, who is responsible for getting them from one status to the next. Okay. So at this point, we could say, okay, Theo needs that membership expectations conversation, and our main contact is, let's say I'm the main contact. So it's Jen, your job this week is to have that conversation with Theo. Do you need any help with that? Do we need to bring someone else from the chapter along? Things like that. How can we make that happen? Those are all the types of questions and the planning that I would recommend that you do every week with your chapter. Now that and you do that individually for all of your A status potential new members. Then I like to move down to my B status potential new members. And you can see earlier we were talking about how you can segment this list because of where they're at. All of the Bs kind of need the same thing, but how it's going to happen and by who is going to be up to that main contact to help. They're the ones responsible for making sure that we don't forget about these leads and that they're consistently being introduced to other people in the chapter, asked to hang out, asked to come to the events. So our B status potential new members, they're currently at that mutual interest and to that holding bid or needs a bid moment. And so in this case, this is probably where we have that conversation about membership expectations. Holding a bid or needs a bid is really kind of like, how do we make this special for that person? How do they feel like they really belong when we give them their bid? That's more so the conversation that you're going to be having with your A's. Your B's, I totally mix that up, are going to be that sort of membership expectation conversation because we need to get them to a point where we decide, are they getting a bid? Yes or no. Then we would move them to their A status or to that F status, not compatible. So I would go to your B's and say, okay, who is going to have that membership expectations conversation? Again, that main contact is really going to be the one spurring the work there. Then I come over and go to our C status potential new members. Now, at this point, you'll probably notice that you have more potential new members the more that your statuses go down. That's because you're adding a lot of leads to the top of your funnel to that A status, and then you're working through them until you get to those new members. Not every name that we put in here is going to end up becoming a new member, but it gives us an opportunity to address them sort of in this bulk way. Again, they all need something, just who's going to do it and how is going to be the difference. So for our C status leads, they're sitting at expressed interest. Like we said, maybe this is they've attended an event or they're actually texting us back. What we want to move them to is mutual interest. So at my weekly recruitment committee meeting, I would probably say, okay, C status potential new members. We're going to make sure that all of them have a main contact, someone in the chapter who they're closest to. And their job is to introduce them to more people in the chapter, because that's what we need to get from this C to this B status. So for our main contacts for our C status potential new members, your job is to introduce them to someone else in the chapter. This could be at a rush event. This could be just hanging out. This could be just inviting the lead to come out to dinner with you and your friends, or, if you're going to the movies, invite them along. Whatever that is, we want to introduce them to more people in the chapter so we can move them to that B, mutual interest. Then I come down to our Ds. And now our Ds, those are the ones where maybe we just have their name and their contact information, but no one in the chapter really knows them yet. Our goal is to start building a relationship with them. So what I do for our D status potential new members is I would say, okay, does anyone in the chapter know any of these guys? I would even like pull it up on the big screen, things like that. Ask the chapter, does anyone know of any of these potential members? Maybe someone has a class with them, they're in another organization with them, whatever it might be. That person should become their main contact. They are in with that person, so that way it's less of a cold opener and more of a warm opener. We have a reason to talk to them, that kind of thing. And that is the person who knows them the best, or maybe knows them at all. They should be the ones starting that relationship. For those other leads where maybe no one in the chapter knows them, this is where I would use those members, you know, those guys who are like super friendly and could talk to like a literal door and make it their best friend. That is who you should be assigning these D status potential new members to as the main contact. Their job is to get to know these guys and start bringing them around the chapter, introducing them to other people, hanging out with them, making them friends, seeing what it's actually like to be friends and hang out with other guys in the chapter. That's where we can rely on our members' strengths to use them to help us continue recruiting, using their strengths, the things that they like, the things that they're really good at. So for our Ds, I would try to get them a main contact, or the other thing that you could do is you could contact them in mass to start working on building that relationship. Okay. So if we want to text all of our D status potential new members and we want to tell them that we have an upcoming rush event, what you can do is you can, again, filter your list, and then you can select all from that list. What this does is I'm selecting all of my D status potential new members, and I can come over here to our actions button in the top right corner, and I can text these leads. Now, the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you have a phone number set up. But once you do have that phone number set up, this is where you can then text all of your leads. Now, even if I'm texting 30 leads at a time, I can still personalize that message so that it's something that this potential member could resonate with. We can add their first name into that text message. Let me go ahead and add myself as an admin user. Let's see. Okay, we're there. To set up your phone number, you can go to settings and then phone. Make sure that you have a phone number set up. If your chapter's been using ChapterBuilder, hopefully you already do have a phone number set up. But you can always pass this phone number from one person to another. So if maybe the old recruitment chair still has access to the phone number, maybe this is where we go and we switch so that way we're the actual ones texting and receiving those text messages back. Now, when I go to our messages, I can see that I have a text box here, and then any of those recipients that I select and use the actions button for, they're going to be listed right here. Like I said, you can personalize this message. You can add in their first name to this message if you wanted to. Here is when you could say like, hey, first name, glad you were interested in learning more about Fiji. We're getting together and meeting some more guys on campus and would like to have you join us. From here, you can add any additional information, but then what you always want to make sure that you do with these text messages is you always want to add it with, you always want to end it with some sort of action. You want to prompt them to take action based on this text message. So here is where we could say not just the information about our events, but then we want to end it with something like, will we see you there? Or do you need a ride or someone to pick you up? Whatever it might be, you always want to end that message with some sort of action. That is going to help you get more responses back. It's really easy to ignore a text when there's no question to it, right? So always add some sort of actionable item at the end there. You also want to keep it short, keep it sweet. You also want to make sure that it's not spammy, because the other thing too is that your phone numbers in ChapterBuilder are registered with phone companies as verified phone numbers because it's verified from Fiji through ChapterBuilder. What might happen is that if your message feels too spammy, or if too many people are ignoring your text because they come off as spammy, the phone companies can actually flag your text and stop sending them because they're trying to crack down on the spam that people get through text. So again, you just want to make sure that we're not actually feeling like this is very spammy. Give them an option, say like, hey, if you want us to not text you anymore, if you're not interested anymore, just let us know, we'll stop texting you. Or hey, if we could contact you in a different way, like DM or something like that, just let us know. Whatever it might be, you just want to make sure that that's actually a message that people want to respond to. Otherwise, the phone companies will catch it and they will stop it from being sent. If that does happen, you can always contact our support team, and we have a few tips on how you can help craft better text messages. I mentioned contacting the support team. On the right-hand side of the screen, on every screen in ChapterBuilder, you'll see this orange help button. Now, I don't want you to be afraid of this button. I think sometimes we are really afraid of help buttons on screens. But what this does is it doesn't contact you with anyone on our support team or anything like that. Instead, what it does is it brings up these um, frequently asked question articles, questions that other people might have asked that you need an answer for as well. So I like to recommend that in the Help Center, you could search anything about a specific feature, or if there's some sort of terminology in here, like if you're like, what is a lead again? You could ask that question to our Help Center, and different Help Center articles are going to pop up for you. This is also where you can find our support resources. So you can contact our support team at chapterbuildersupport@firedup.com. This is where you can send any of those questions that you might ask. They do work normal business hours. So just FYI on that, we're not going to have an immediate response if it's overnight or on the weekends, but they should be able to help you out. They can confirm that your phone number is registered. They can give you those additional tips or any other features that you might need help with ChapterBuilder. You can always reach out to our support team. We also have this start here button. This is a really, really great place to start, as the name suggests, for any of your team. So if you're watching this and you're like, wow, our chapter needs to do a better job of actually visiting ChapterBuilder each week, and we need a few guys working in here because recruitment is not just the job of one person, if you didn't already know. But if you want to get the rest of your team trained, this is a really, really great place to start. This is a training video, as well as sort of a checklist of where do we start? How do we start using ChapterBuilder, or how do we start using ChapterBuilder better? This is one place that you can go to for those resources. Now, it is really important that you get your team trained on how to use ChapterBuilder, because if they wanted to, they could accidentally delete a lead or something like that. To add additional members to your ChapterBuilder account, or to review who has access to your ChapterBuilder account, which you should be doing at least once a year, and this is a great time to do it as new officers. But what you should do is you should enter their email, and then you select what level of access you want them to have. So do you want them to be an admin? That's the highest level of access. They have access to all the settings, could accidentally delete things if they're not careful. That is who you want as your admins. Our coach is one of those like look, don't touch roles. So they can take a look at the lead profile. They can add notes if they need to, but they're not actually going to be able to like text leads or anything like that. It's a really great role for any sort of advisor, or maybe you have an HQ coach who's working with you, someone like that. Our leaders aren't going to have access to everything, but they're going to have an elevated access. So leader is a really great role if you are doing like recruitment teams or anything like that, where you're breaking the chapter up into small groups, but they all have some sort of leader who answers to you. That would be that leader role there. And then everyone else in the chapter is going to be your members. Now, oftentimes we get the question of how many members should we add here? Well, with our upgraded accounts, you have unlimited uses for your number of users. However, what you should really think about is who is actually helping us recruit. Is it the whole chapter? If so, let's get the whole chapter in there. Is it just a small committee? Then let's just add the small committee. Are you brand new and just trying it out? Maybe we just have a small number of people to start out. But the answer is going to be different for every chapter. So what I just ask you to think about is who is actually helping with our recruitment efforts and would need to do things like add leads, write notes, things like that. Now, if they found ChapterBuilder before you had an opportunity to invite them, you might see them under this request to join section. This is where any of your pending requests to join your ChapterBuilder account can be approved or denied by any of your admins who are currently in your account. So definitely be sure to check this section, especially if you're just now getting access to your ChapterBuilder account. If they've been invited, but they don't have a ChapterBuilder account, they're going to show up here under invited members. This is where you can resend them that invitation, or if they do have an account with ChapterBuilder, you're going to see them under current members. This is where you can find them, change their access level, or remove them should you need to. Now, again, you should definitely take a look at your entire member list at least once a year. Remove anyone who doesn't need access to it anymore. Make sure that everyone who does need access is invited, all that good stuff there. Now, I would love to take a pause real quick. We haven't dove into too many features yet, but I want to kind of see where are we at so far? Is this like all information that we know? Have we felt like we learned something new? Is there a specific concern for those of you who have been using ChapterBuilder so far? What are the barriers to your chapter using this? Or maybe if you haven't used it yet, what are some of the barriers that you could expect from your members or from your recruitment team in using this? Anything that I can help with in the moment right now.
Um, I would say for us, it's been pretty easy getting all the guys that are, potential new members on the chapter builder. I think the biggest thing for us is getting them, to regularly check it weekly. I think that's been one of the biggest issues. But it also hasn't really been that big of a struggle. We just kind of reach out to them on different platforms of social media, and they're usually pretty good about getting on it. I think it's just one of those things where it comes down to repetition.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yep, that is, like I said, one of the hardest parts about integrating ChapterBuilder into your regular chapter operations is that consistent usage. So my recommendation to any of our recruitment officers or anything like that, let's talk about it weekly at chapter meeting. If you have those weekly chapter meetings, make it a regular point to update the chapter on where you're at, okay? They don't need to know every little detail, but something that could be helpful for you and for your chapter is to, if you have the opportunity to show like a big screen in chapter meeting, is to come over to our analytics and see what kind of activity have we had in the last week since our last chapter builder, since our last chapter meeting and our last chapter builder update. Now, when you're looking at our analytics, a few things to remember here is that whenever there is a date range, it's always going to revert to the last 7 days. So again, if you're doing this for chapter meeting every week, it's going to be really easy to just pull this up. It's already going to be ready for you in a summary of what's happened this week. If you see any icons in our analytics, hover over it and that will tell you what it's counting up. If you need to, you can also download any of our analytic reports here if you need to. But what I might show at ChapterBuilder, one option is right here, this overview. What this will tell you, I really like this status report. This is a breakdown of how many potential new members do we have in each of our statuses, and what has that change looked like in the last week. This could be really great to update your chapter. So you could say, all right, we got one who we plan on extending a bid to in the next week. That's where we can use this information. We have 5 that we are looking to introduce to new people in the chapter. So if a member reaches out to you and asks if you want to hang out with a lead, then you should say yes, because we're trying to get these guys from this C expressed interest to this B mutual interest. That's where you can sort of give your team a heads up of what's going on in the next week. What does your team plan on doing in the next week without giving them those intricate little details that they just don't need to know, right? Other one is that if you have members who are particularly competitive, or if you like to sort of reward members for helping out, one of the other things that's going to be really helpful for you is this leaderboard. What the leaderboard does is it takes all of these different actions that we can take in Chapter Builder and it tallies them up and assigns a point value to it. So you can see who has provided the most information here in ChapterBuilder in the last week. You could also change this to the last month if you needed to. But again, another resource that might be really helpful in your regular chapter meetings if you're working to visit this weekly. Leads will be a breakdown of lead information. I don't think you're going to need that for chapter meeting. Um, the analytic report that I really love. Okay, before I get into this, one thing that I would love to point out is that the way that Chapter Builder sort of steps it up with this names list concept, this leads list concept, where we have everyone on a list and we're sort of working them through the list, all that good stuff. What we really need to know is what is working and what isn't working. I think we would all love to spend less time on things that don't actually work in recruitment in Rush, right? No one needs to spend extra time on things that we don't like or that aren't actually giving us results. So that's the reason why I really love this referral source report. Now, this report only works if you put the data into ChapterBuilder. Okay, so referral source is one of those fields in your lead list that you can fill out. Referral source tells us where did their name even come from? How did we meet them? How were we introduced to them? This might be through one of your ChapterBuilder forms. Maybe it's through a referral of another member. Maybe it's a referral from a staff member. I don't know, whatever it might be, put in that referral source, and then this referral source status will tell you what is actually getting you results and what isn't. So not only will it tally up the total number of leads that came through that referral source, but it'll also tell you where are they now based on their statuses, A, B, C, or D. So we can see, okay, we got a lot of leads through our interest form, but they're all still sitting at that D status. What does that tell us? That tells us that number one, we need to work our Ds in our lead list a little bit more. We need to make sure that they're not just hanging out there and no one's actually reaching out to them or anything. Um, and then we could also say that maybe we need, maybe this interest form doesn't give us too many qualified leads, right? Again, we need to work them in order to get them out of that D status. So that is sort of my tips for revisiting ChapterBuilder weekly and a few of the things that can help you in sort of like giving you a talking point at chapter meetings. So again, it does become a regular part of your chapter operations. Now, a few things that I mentioned before. Number one is your forms. If you all should have forms in your chapter account. Now, again, one of our major pieces in here is we're working to add leads to our lead list. The different ways that you add leads to your lead list, those different referral sources, we also like to call those pipelines. Now, pipelines are, again, how you're feeding names into your lead list. Some of your pipelines are going to be more active, like maybe we have an event coming up and we have a form for that specific event. Anyone who showed up, we want to know what their information was, so that's what we have. Maybe it's a little bit more passive, like we post it on our social media and whoever fills it out, fills it out. Regardless, you want to make sure that you have a few different pipelines and that you have a variety of different types of pipelines. You have some that are more active that you have to work towards. You have some that are more passive that are getting you leads in the background. You have different pipelines that are maybe going to be a one-time pipeline. You get this one time and one time only. Maybe it's a continual pipeline where leads are continually coming in throughout the year. Again, you need to have a lot of them and you need to have a variety of them. Forms are one of the ways, especially for those really passive ways of getting leads onto your lead list, those passive pipelines, because we do the work on the front end. So we set up here an information table form. Anytime that we table, we have this information table form that we can use to collect the information of the guys who are walking by and talking to us because they're interested. Maybe we have an alumni event coming up and we want to ask for alumni referrals. We can create an alumni referral form, and that's going to introduce us again to more potential new members. With these forms, you can edit them to ask basically any question that you want. Lots of different customizations right here in the form, but then also on the right-hand side of the screen, this is also where you're going to find some of our form settings. What the form looks like when it's ready to be filled out is dependent on how you build it, but here's sort of our basic form. You can see here we have this option that says I'm completing this form for someone else. This would be if you're using it for like alumni referrals, maybe member referrals, whatever it might be, those referrals, they can put in that lead information up here and then their own information down here. So we know that they're not just a referral, but who actually referred them. That's going to help us out there. Now, the one piece with forms that I will mention is you need to be very careful on how you are sharing your forms, okay? Whether you're sharing it with the chapter so they have it available for their shift for tabling, whether you have it in your social media form, whether you turn it into your university to put on the website, you need to make sure that you are sharing the form properly. Now, again, whenever we need help with something, this help flag is right there on the right-hand side of the screen. I can type in here sharing forms. And what this does is it gives me an article giving me a step-by-step of how to share my forms. Now, the reason it's tricky and the reason that you need to pay attention when you're sharing your forms is you first need to make sure that your link sharing is turned on. So you do that from the edit form page. We're going to turn on link sharing. We're going to save. Then what this does is it gives us this copy form link button. This is where you want to copy that form link from. Never grab it from the URL. Even when you're viewing the form, do not grab the URL. That is not the same URL. That is not the shareable link. Use this copy form link button. The link that they give you is actually crazy long. We've looked into automatically shortening them, but we don't have the power to do that right now. So we would recommend that you turn in the link that ChapterBuilder gives you into a URL shortener, a free URL shortener, something like bit.ly, tinyurl. Google has a short link version. So whatever you need to do, get that shortened link. You could even turn it into a QR code if you're going to do tabling and print out that QR code. So that way people walking by your table can scan it and fill out the information if they need to. All different options there. But again, if we have any issues with forms, the number one thing that you should check is, did I actually share this form correctly? Save yourself the hassle and follow these steps when you actually go to share your forms. Okay. Another feature we haven't touched is our events. Believe it or not, this is actually a thing that you can do in ChapterBuilder. You can create your rush events, your recruitment events, whatever you call them. You could create them right here in your ChapterBuilder account. It's going to ask for all of the details of what is this event, where is it going on, when is it happening, all that good stuff. Once you create that event, it creates an RSVP form. So if we're doing barbecue and basketball, maybe we need to ask if anyone has any dietary restrictions or food allergies or something like that, right? If we're going to feed them, we can have them fill out this RSVP form, and we can ask for things like food allergies if we need it. Then we can send this form out to our leads to ask them to RSVP to this event. Now, to invite your leads, you're going to go to the Send Invites page. You're going to select which leads do you actually want to invite. Maybe this is a smaller number, maybe this is everyone. You can use the different filter options here to select everyone that you need to. Then you're going to click Next. You're going to go, this gives you an option to invite your members, your users in ChapterBuilder. You can skip over this part if you need to. It's going to ask you to confirm the list of invitations that you've selected. You'll see here that I selected all of our leads, and when all of our leads are selected, no data is displayed here. Then go to Next, and what this does is it allows you to send a text message or an email to your potential new members. And that message could be, hey, have this event going on. Will you be there? We'd love to have you fill out our RSVP form. Need a ride, need someone to meet you there, something like that. Again, always end it with some sort of action that is not just, we want to see you there. So you can send out that invitation. That also gives you the option to add in their first name. Again, personalize it a little bit, all that good stuff. Then you can come over here to manage your lead guest. And then from here, you can see who's been invited, how have they RSVP'd, And this attendance is something that you can track, but it will need to be done manually. So if you have someone checking at the door or something like that, maybe you're doing it after the event and you have, the list of people who attended, you can update this later, however you need to, but just know that it is a manual update for this attended this event. So those are two of the major features that I wanted to cover with you all. The last thing that I have for you is one of the most basic things, but I totally skipped over it. And again, this is a way to sort of level up your chapter builder usage. And that is making sure that you can segment your potential new member list. That means we need to put data about our leads here inside a chapter builder. If we come to Anthony's profile here, we can see all of the information that we have about Anthony so far. We have some of these info fields that we collected through some sort of event form or some sort of form that we had going on to collect that information. If we hung out with Anthony, maybe he came to one of our study table events or something like that, we can come over here and add a note, jotting down any of that anecdotal information that might be helpful. Something that's going to help us not restart the friendship that we've been building with Anthony for each new person that he meets, but it helps us continue the friendship, right? Not start it over, but continue it. If we start it over, we're going to start sounding like sorority recruitment where they ask the same question to the same people like 8 times in a row in the same day. So let's continue the relationship, continue the friendship with any of those notes. We also have these milestones and tags. Again, other ways to sort of categorize potential new members based on what they've done or who they are. Now, your statuses did that through a chronological time frame based on where they are in the recruitment process. For those other things that happen in the recruitment process, like maybe they attended a meeting or activity, maybe they referred a friend, maybe we had some sort of contact with them, we can use our milestones to track those. So I know that Anthony has already come to one of our events, he's already referred a friend, and we've already had some sort of contact with him. That's all really great information to know about Anthony and his journey through membership. The other thing that we have are our tags. So we can determine these are going to be anything related to the lead themselves. Things like, are they a legacy? Are they an upperclassman? Are they a transfer student? Whoever that might be. That is the ways that we can use those milestones and tags. So again, they all track different things a little bit. If you're newer to Chapter Builder, don't worry about these details. Focus on the basics, master the basics, and then we can, up your usage later on. But for those of you who are ready to level up your usage, one of the things that you can do with these milestones and these tags is that you can come into search your lead list and you can select a very specific group of potential new members. So let's say that we want to get in touch with anyone who hasn't attended a meeting or activity. I can apply these filters and see all of our potential new members who haven't attended a meeting or activity. And I can say, okay, our goal is to get them to some sort of in-person meetup in the next 2 weeks. And then you can target your outreach specifically to them if you needed to. Maybe we want to search everyone who hasn't attended a meeting or activity and doesn't have a main contact. Then we know that maybe no one in the chapter is actually talking to them and we need to get in touch with them somehow. All different ways that you can filter your list to be really strategic about who and how you contact these potential new members. We want you to be able to do things in bulk because it helps save us time and it really professionalizes or sophisticates, makes more sophisticated our recruitment efforts. So that was a really quick run through. I hope that was a different training than some of you may have attended in the past. Maybe you're a president who was a past recruitment chair. I hope that you learned something new. What I would love to know in the chat is, again, what is something new that you learned? Or What is maybe one of those things that you could use to help improve how your chapter uses Chapter Builder? Maybe, again, if there's something standing in your way, what I want to know is what are you going to do with this information now? Are you going to take it back to your chapter and actually implement it? Are you actually going to do regular Chapter Builder reviews and chapter meeting? Are you going to add your whole team to Chapter Builder or just a small group? That's what I would love to know in the chat right now is what are you doing now when it comes to Chapter Builder? I gave you a few ideas, but I can keep going if you want me to keep going. Maybe you need to train your team in ChapterBuilder. Make sure that everyone gets fully trained. Maybe you need to start taking better notes. Maybe you need to make sure that your phone number is switched over from the old officer to the new officer. In the chat, what are we doing now? Or if you're like, wow, I'm completely lost and I have no idea what's going on, maybe let me know that too, even if it's a private message. That way we can help you out. My goal and our goal here at Fired Up is to help chapters grow. We want to help you grow in the best, most sustainable ways possible, right? Again, no one needs to make recruitment any harder than it already is, right? We want to help make it easier. We want to help you be able to organize all of your recruitment efforts so you actually know what's happening when your advisor asks for an update, or if you are an advisor, so you know what type of an update to ask for. If you have any questions about how Chapter Builder works or how your chapter could better use it, let us know. We are happy to help identify those things for you. Maybe it's, hey, our chapter does this weird thing and we're just not sure how that works in Chapter Builder. We can help you figure out what this means for your use in Chapter Builder. I'm going to go ahead and drop in the chat. This is our tech training and live support links. This is our essentially our open office hours. That was wrong. Essentially our open office hours for Chapter Builder. We want to, for any of our technologies, this is very limited, so only like 5 people can attend one open office hour session at a time. That way we can get really personalized into how your chapter is using this and how we can improve based on this. I'm going to read through some of the comments. Keep identifying those things. If anything's going to be a barrier that we still need to address or maybe talk through, we can turn off the recording soon and then you can come off of mute too if that's easier. But let's go through some of these comments here. Analytics tab is super helpful. Yes, I think the analytics tab is the thing that takes Chapter Builder to the next level when it comes to recruitment technology, right? A Google Sheet isn't going to give you the analytics that Chapter Builder will. Maybe it will, but you're going to have to be a super user in Google Sheets in order to do that. But again, we want to help by putting that information right in front of your face there. Identifying individuals that might have an interest in helping organize recruitment or future chairman role. Yes, making sure you know who is on your team to recruit. Who can you rely on? And again, use their strengths. Who are those guys who can talk to anyone? Use them to talk to the guys who we don't know yet. Who are the guys who know a lot about the chapter, who can have those pre-close conversations about, hey, what are some of your, fears in joining? What would be exciting about joining? Who can have that conversation and let's use their skills to their benefit when it comes to moving them to like that A status. Helping chapters I work with keep good information about the leads they're identifying. Yes, absolutely. I think the entire fraternity and sorority industry has gotten away with, yeah, recruitment's going good for a really long time. And we don't always mean recruitment's going good, right? Or maybe it's going good to us because we haven't had any major pain points, but maybe we also haven't recruited anyone in a semester or so, right? Then it's going not so good. So being able to actually tell what is happening in recruitment is one of the major uses here in Chapter Builder, not just for chapter officers, but also for advisors, for HQ coaches. We want to be able to help you out, but we need to know what's happening in recruitment in order to be able to help you out. This is where you put your recruitment efforts so everyone knows what's going on so we can give you the help that is you actually need. Start training the other guys to utilize Chapter Builder to its full potential. Yes, and you don't have to train them. send them to us. You do not have to be an expert in ChapterBuilder and training other people to use ChapterBuilder. Make us do that work. We have a ChapterBuilder training classroom. We have, our help center. We have our support line. We have that training video. Whatever it is, assign something to them and have them complete it, okay? Don't just, hey, whenever you have some time, review this video. It's, nope, we're going to use ChapterBuilder, and because you're on my team, I need you to use it so you don't accidentally screw anything up. Here's the training that you can use to understand this better. If you have any questions, come to Tech Training and Live Support, our open office hours. Assign them to your team so that way they actually get done. Sending out more forms to a wider spread of groups. Perfect. You all have unlimited forms. You could get so specific with your forms that you could have a different form every day of tabling if you wanted to. I'm not saying that's the answer. If you can't keep up with it, don't do it. But you can create all of those different forms. And again, they all become different referral sources. Let's have a form on our social media. Let's have a form that we use for member referrals, right? Our members aren't going to come in here and add leads themselves. So instead, let's create a form and have them do it the easy way by filling out that form instead of coming in here and adding a lead. Great. Sending text, super helpful. Number switched over, perfect, good job. Yeah, in the comments, right? That is definitely a way to level up. If your chapter has been using ChapterBuilder to organize leads in your lead list, that's awesome. Now let's step it up. Now let's level up. Now let's do even more by doing things like writing comments, figuring out how our chapter wants to track milestones and tags, what's important to our chapter. Those are the kind of questions too that you can be asking your recruitment committee. What kind of things do we want to keep track of? Do we want to make sure, how do we want to make sure that we are contacting these potential new members? Creating some sort of plan for how your chapter uses ChapterBuilder is going to be really important, especially with you brand new officers. Set the stage right, start the year off with the bang, make sure everyone knows what they're doing, and follow through with that plan. That would be my recommendation. All right, y'all, I am here for any last minute questions. Thank you so much for being here and best of luck with recruitment. We are here for you if you need anything there. Taylor, any last announcements from HQ?
I don't think so. Just thank you so much. This was a really awesome training, so really appreciate the time. Thanks for being here with us tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you so much, Jen.